Alright, so the first thing we want to do, we're going to make sure that our paper is landscape. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and put my name on the bottom corner. Alright, so I'm going to put first name, last name. Alright, this just happens to be A3. So I'm going to put that there. If you're in another class, please put the appropriate class. Now, I will turn this over. And what we're going to do is we need to make a border around our picture. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make two little dots, all right, a ½ inch in on both parts of the paper. So I made one here at the top. I'm going to make one at the bottom, all right, because as much as we trust our paper companies, sometimes they don't make straight lines. All right, so once I put those two dots, then I'm going to set my ruler on the edge of the paper here at the bottom. So you can see how my ruler is lined up with my paper, but I'm also going to scooch this over to where my ruler lines up with both of my dots. Please take your time with this. All right, you don't want uneven lines. If one is a little too far over, all right, make sure you check all 3 points, dot, dot, edge. Then, without holding your pencil like you would be with a death grip, all right, or you'd be writing your name, go ahead and lightly just score down the edge of that. You can do a second pass if needed, and then make your line. Now, in this, you're going to wash, rinse, and repeat. So you're going to do that again, but this time to the long side of the paper. So I'm going to put one toward the bottom, then I'm going to put a ½ inch here at the top. Now please make sure you do not want to be number to number. That's a full inch. Alright, you want to be number to the next biggest line. Alright, so as you look at this, there's several small, there's a couple medium. Alright, there's one that's almost really long, but then you've got this one here, halfway between the numbers. That should be your ½ inch. Now, as you've done before, you got two dots. Lay out your dot, dot, edge. Make sure it's all in line, and then score. Now, as we make this border is here for two reasons. All right, one, to make our work look a little bit more unified, but it's also there, since this is a practice for us, this is also there for you to take some notes. So not only do you see the picture, but you also have notes there to reinforce what we have learned. Now, once you have got all four edges done, then we're going to move to putting a line as close to the center as possible. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need to measure, 4 inches, 4 inches. All right, really just kind of eyeball a good middle section and then lay in this line. Now, this line has a specific term. It's called the horizon line. Now on this line, we're also going to put a little dot, and this is what we affectionately call the vanishing point. Now I put the initials VP. This is a good time if you really want to put some notes on the outside. You can put a legend over here, VP equals vanishing point. Now, this is a universal setup for what is known as one-point perspective. Now, you see here I'm writing at the top of the screen. All right, it says linear perspective. All right, I'm going to put in parentheses 1 point. All right, because there's many different types of perspective. There's a 2-point, a 3-point, a 4-point, a 5-point, even a 6-point perspective. And there's also multi like different multi perspectives, and we can get into that stuff down the road. Now, I want to kind of give you a preview so that you know where we're going to go with this picture. All right, so this is where we're going to be heading. We're going to make a little suburb sketch. All right, we're going to have a couple of houses on one side. We're going to have the sidewalk, 2 cars, and then some other houses in the distance. So, let's embark on our journey. First thing we want to do, we want to start here with the vanishing point, and we're going to connect from the vanishing point to the right hand corner. Alright, now take your time with this, no need to rush. Want to get a nice line in, so we're going to start vanishing point, work all the way to the corner. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to cover the left side. Vanishing point to the corner. Now, what I'm going to do next, I want to go ahead and start making the distinction between the sidewalk and like the grassy area, then the next sidewalk here. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is here at the bottom, I'm going to put 2 little dots. Alright, now, you can try this. If you want to make this as humanly perfect as possible, you can lightly score in some dotted lines. Alright, then you can measure and say, alright, I want this to be 1 inch on one side and 1 inch on the other. That way it's perfectly symmetrical, but if you do not want that to be perfectly symmetrical, then you can kind of eyeball it, alright, as I did initially. Now, with these dots, just as we've done before, let us connect those dots to the vanishing point. Now, I will caution you as you do this to not try to kill every graphite line that you put on here. Alright, because at some point we may have to erase some of those out. Now, before we go much further too, I want to go ahead and set in my street line. Alright, so I'm going to go over here on my left hand side. Alright, really close to the horizon line. I'm going to put an extra dot, and I'm going to line those up. Now, next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and give a little bit of separation and make the different sections of grass that's going to be here on this little section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the left hand side of my piece of paper and make sure my ruler is nice and straight with it, and then I'm going to break up this center triangle. Now, at this point, this is why I cautioned you about putting lots of like heavy, thick lines on there. What I want to do is just lightly erase. Because if you remember from the reference image, this will be where the car, like the garage area will be. So this will be the driveway to our garage, the car, it's going to, or the house is going to sit over here. Now, once I do that, I am going to need to make a little bit of adjustments right here. Alright? Now, right now you've got a continuous triangle all the way down. Alright? To create the illusion of perspective, we need to simply square off this little section there. All right, now notice I took out this corner and that corner, and then I'm going to straighten those edges. All right, now according to where you're at on the distance part here, that may not be a big ordeal. All right, there might be just a small change in that line. For me, it's a small change, but it's an effective change. All right, you got to see that that's not a part of that triangle, that this is now actually sticking up from you know, the lower plane. Now, just so that we can start figuring out what this is, all right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this into a grassy area. All right, and it's going to be real simple. I'm going to give each of these a little buddy. All right, so I'm starting in that lower box. Oops, that's a little crooked. So I broke that up a little bit. Now what this is the concrete, all right, that's going to hold the grass into place. So now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just start just on the edges. I'll come back to this a little bit later, but just so that I have something to work from, I'm going to go ahead and start giving this almost a grassy effect. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with a small stroke, all right, changing directions here, but then as it's starting to come toward me, all right, I'm going to have a little bigger stroke, a little heavier weight to my pencil. Alright, now I'm not going to finish that just yet. I'll come back to that shortly. I just want to make sure I have a mental note that that's what's going on. Alright. Now, one of the good tricks to the trade is that we're going to start going back this way. We're going to have roughly the same information. It's just that we're only going to worry about this front little U shape. Alright, so we're going to add a little bit of straight lines there, kind of make that grassy. Alright, then eventually we'll just come back in and fill that in. And just create the illusion that grass is supposed to go there. Okay, so starting to make these little knolls that separate each of the houses. Alright, so the driveway is going to kind of go through here, so I'm going to lightly sketch that in. Now this has no real purpose. This just gives me a little bit of, this is where I kind of want it to go. Now that being said, let's start making our garage. Alright, we know that the car would roll in this way and come into a garage somewhere in here. So what I want to do, take my ruler, once again set to the vanishing point and lightly draw in this line. Now this will be the base of our house. From there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make where I think the roof is going to go. Now the great thing about this project right now is that we're not really basing it on, you know, like a real house. Alright, so we have some liberties. You can take it in whatever direction you want to go. So as you learn to build the house, then you can start adding to and taking away as you see fit. Alright, now for my garage, this will be the bottom of the garage. This will be the top up here. Alright, now I've kind of got it already sketched out to where the opening of the garage will be. So let's go ahead and take that information into account. So I know we're going to have an opening here, so I'm going to put that line in, and then we're going to have another opening in this area, now if I went all the way to the top toward this line, if I hit that, well, that's the roof. Alright, I have nothing to attach my garage door to, so I don't want to be that high. So I'm going to come down to, say, this area right here. Alright, giving some space. Alright, I'm going to start with the tallest line, and I'm going to draw in toward the vanishing point until I hit the smaller line. Alright, and at that point you should see, alright, the garage door starting to happen. Now, I have an extra line here, so that I don't confuse myself. Alright, I'll erase that and get rid of it. Now, we got the garage door, but what about the surrounding? What about the rest of the facade? Alright, so we need to give this one a body. So I'm going to scooch you over to about right here. I want to put that line in. And then I'll finish the front facade of the garage door, because I have some room right here to work with. I will go right here and put that edge in too. Okay, so far so good. Alright, we're starting our house over here. We've got a driveway kind of sketched in, which we'll do some more fixing of that shortly. Now, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and grab my ruler. I'm going to try to find the center of my door. Alright, you can rule this out, or you can just you can eyeball it. And I'm going to put a straight line right there. Now by moving the ruler, that looks not centered. Alright, so some trial and error may be needed. Alright, so that looks a little bit better. Now what I'm going to do here is I want to make a slight little line, alright, that kind of makes an upside down L. And then I'm going to connect that to my vanishing point. Now I'm not going to go all the way because I don't need all that. Now from here, I'm going to take where those two lines met, where I made that L. Alright, and the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a straight line from there down. Then I will go the opposite direction. I'll go from the apex come out that way. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come right here, I'm going to grab my ruler again. I'm going to draw a line out this way, just slightly. And then I'm going to connect this top part and this top part there. Now I want to give some space to my roof, so I'll bring this line up. Doesn't need to be super large. Just make sure it's nice and straight. Then we're going to mimic that angle Alright, now when I drew this corner right here, I put that in for a purpose, because that's actually the corner of the house. but it's not the corner of the eave, all right, or the overhang here on the garage. So what I had to do is I had to take this information right here and build it first, all right, then I put the rest of the roof on there. So now I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning up. So I'll erase that out because this part actually comes in front of, all right, the edge of the garage there. All right, so that's why I made this first. I had to get that established. Then I built this on top of, all right, and then I will erase underneath it. That's why that looks kind of suspect at the beginning. All right, so as of right now, it should look like you have, you know, this pentagon shape for the garage, and then you should have this rectangular shape sticking out from the eave. Now, mine turned out to be pretty lucky because as of right now, to show space, all right, to show like it's going back into space, mine hits right on the edge of my border. So, only thing I have to do now to put the shingles on my roof is draw in some lines like that, all right, then I can start shingling the roof there. All right, now I do see a problem right here, all right, because this is still angular. All right, to go back into space like my roof is going back in space, all right, I've got to change this line right here. All right, so I find that taller line of my garage. Then I come here to the bottom, draw this line straight over. And then if it helps, just so that you can see a little bit better, I take out that diagonal. So now it looks like this part is the front facade, and this part like you're going back, trying to go into the house. Now, garages don't sit on the same plane as the facade. They actually kick back a little bit. So I'm going to show you real quickly how to do that. Now, just like the side over here, all right, I find the lowest point, all right, of my garage door, and I'm going to make a small little line. Everybody see that little line right there? Not super huge, just enough to set it back a little bit. Then I'm going to take my ruler, and where the outside edge of that line is, that itty bitty line, I'm going to make sure that it's lined up with my vanishing point. And I'm going to draw that little section right there. Alright, and that way that kicks back a little bit. Now at this point, am I done? No. Alright, I still got to create the illusion that the side is going back. So, this is super easy. Just take the ruler, line it up to where the initial line and that diagonal line meet, and then drop that line down like that. Now to keep things consistent, since these lines are going straight across, alright, this line will too, so you're not really going to see what's called the armpit here of this corner. Alright, it's going to line up right there. Now you can signify this with a little bit of shadowing if you need to, but it's not 100% necessary. Now, your garage might be different from my garage, but I have a little bonus room on my garage, alright, and it has a little vent system right here. So what I want to do is I want to create a circular shape there, but I want to make sure it's in perspective. So the first thing I want to do, because if I just eyeball it, I mean, it could look perfect, but then again, it may not. So what I want to do is I want to create a square that's going to create a circle. So I'm going to do that and that. Alright, so I've got them both connected to the vanishing point. Then I will make my straight lines up and down, making sure I've got the tools in the right spot. Erase what I need to erase. Now, try not to pay attention to the center line. because we really want to focus on this. So what I want to do to make a circle is I want to put a plus sign. I'm sorry, an X, and then a plus sign. Got ahead of myself there. Make sure that this is guided toward the vanishing point. Now at this point, this is where you have to eyeball a little bit, because a circle in perspective is no longer a circle. Alright, it's an oval shape. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to work my way around. Then I'm going to put one inside it. And then I will put a little bit of extra shadow here to make it depth, because this has a little bit of depth. So should this. And the vents go just like that. And at that point, then I can erase the outside edges. Put a little extra shadow on this side, because you would see that too. And then my vent is now outside my house. Okay, now before we leave this part of the house, I do want to put in a couple of extra lines basically for our garage door. I'm going to stay as much connected to the vanishing point as possible. Only drawing the lines where I need to. And then because I'm envious of my neighbor's garage who has doors or has windows, I'm going to put 2 windows in there. And a cool little handle.